All right, guys, welcome to the MyBiomechanics Superhero Podcast. Today we have Trevor. Trevor is a guy that I really look up to. He's a very intelligent fighter coach. He deals with boxers, but he also deals with UFC fighters. But just the way that he thinks and how he presents things and just his training is it's next level to me. Like a lot of people don't take the time and effort that he does with everything and just being very intellectual with everything that he does. But I just want to introduce you real quick and just maybe give everybody like a little recap on people who don't know you at all. Just a little, we'll just say like a 30-second bio on who you are and what it is that you do.
What's wrong with Connor, bro? No one cares what the fuck you got to say. Beautiful shit, B. Keep breaking them down, okay? You know, we already knew they were going to fake on this goddamn low blow shit. He can't take body shots. They're beautiful investments, Brandon. Look at me in the eyes. This is your time, baby. You look beautiful as fuck, okay? Hey, he know he wants to throw that stupid right now.
Adams has gotten busy with the
me?
Yeah, you, man.
I trained Brandon Adams. He's currently ranked number one with the WBO. He's in the top 5 with all governing bodies. He's fighting for IBF Eliminator on April 11th at the Cosmo. He'll be the main event. He's at 154. I have a girl that's ranked number 3 with the WBC, Chelsea Maybe Anderson.
Yeah.
And then I have Lawrence King, he's like a son to me. She's been with me 6 or 7 years, and he's ranked number 7 with the WBA. Also in a position at light heavyweight where he can fight for the title. And got Danny Silva, just did something incredible, which at the UFC in Wembley, upset the Pink Panther. And gosh, there's so many kids. Jalen Walker, Syrian, this Matt Rooster, Jacinto, very exciting guy. He's only 5 fights. He already beat a 4-1 and 6-1 on an 8-rounder for his 5th fight, which I think for anybody that knows boxing, we're not handling him with a white glove. We're definitely putting him in deep waters, and he's winning. So for me, I'm just a coach that does what he loves, and no boxing, no life, you know?
Yeah. And mind you guys, he's very, very good at it. I've been seeing some of the wins you've been having. I know you said about the Pink Panther, that's been an upset. And you've been upsetting people lately too, right? Like, just I guess we could say on both, on the Vegas odds and also just people in general.
Yeah, I think so. I did the Canelo Crawford card, and I had Brandon Adams fighting Sergey Boyacek. At that time, Sergey Boyacek was ranked at number 1 with the WBC. He was, he had a very difficult fight against Virgil Ortiz. He dropped Virgil Ortiz twice. A lot of people believe that he had actually won that fight, and which I, can make an argument for, or at least a draw. And we came in there and we shut Sergey down to the point where Brandon won fight of the night on the historic card at the Raider Stadium. And then we just had Silva beat Puma. I think coming in there as an underdog on both cards, because Vegas had us down quite a bit. One was plus 260 and the other one was plus 300 plus. So I tell everybody that when you're going in there and you know that they don't expect you to win, that you should use that as a chip on your shoulder to have great habits. And those habits should be repetition, should be film analysis, it should be drive, following through on everything. Because I think one of the most important things when I'm dealing with fighters is there's always a possibility of failure, but to plan for domination. And if you do fail, at least to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, as a team and as a fighter, that you did everything that you should have done, and to have some pride that it was okay. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and you fail, that's on you. And I think a lot of young men and a lot of young women in the sport are afraid to throw everything out there because it's almost like a security blanket or defense mechanism in case they do fail. So for everybody out there that's either a fighter or they're actively pursuing being the best at their craft, at whatever it is that they're doing in life, don't be afraid to put everything out there, because, why, if you're going to fail, at least you can hold your head up high and know you did everything you're supposed to do. And I think, too, to kind of tie this in, a lot of fighters, Danny Silva cried at the UFC recently in the corner. You see me kind of consoling him after the fight. Same thing with Brandon Adams, is a very emotional corner after the win. And I think that's you're seeing a reflection of that moment of us pouring so much of our soul into doing something, and it actually come to fruition because of our actions, and it being almost emotional overload. Because there's an art of giving your 110% to something, and we all know deep down inside whether or not you're giving yourself in your entirety with all your being towards your goals. And a lot of us, especially as a coach and a trainer, I know when you are, and I know when you're not, and I too have to find that within myself as well, because I too am there in your corner with you, and want to know that I did everything possible to help ensure that we were successful that night.
Yeah, that's funny. Like I just got off with a client right now, and he's going for ADCC trials, and I was like, dude, do you really want to do this? You know what I mean? Like you look like you're going through the motions right now, and I just had to have that talk with him because it's like you have the best training in the world, best nutrition, the best coaches, but you don't want it at the end of the day, then what's the point? You're always going to be number two. You're never going to get that number one spot. Care.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of athletes, they have to uh, be aware and presence and mindful of their being, know their body language, know their habits, know what they're feeding themselves, know the environment that they're situating themselves in. It's you're like a plant on some level. Sometimes you're going to give yourself sun. Sometimes you might change the soil. Sometimes obviously you need the water. Sometimes you might give yourself some shade. But with fighters, they're very much alive, or anybody that's looking to peak perform in any facet of life, and to know that self-awareness of when you should be pushing and when you should be pulling and when you should be chilling and when you go to overdrive, trusting the team around you. But it all begins with us, with ourselves. There should be no room for complacency or mediocrity. As a trainer, I'm very, not to be, I'm very successful. I have over 100 wins. I only have 4 losses and 3 draws. So I always tell people I'm not in the business of losing.
Yeah.
I did that too as an amateur coach. I had incredible amateur results. And that's not a reflection of me being good at anything besides being a workhorse, working too hard, and also being aware too that I am as scared just like anybody else. I'm vulnerable just like anybody else. I'm so self-aware that it only takes one punch. It could take one strike. It could take one submission. And obviously that's not my lane, but I still understand what it is at odds, particularly what the combat industry, and being as thorough as possible, as meticulous as possible, and really trying to leave every stone unturned. And the ego, if there is an ego, doesn't come because I believe that anything was given to me, God given, or I have any innate talent. The ego comes from me believing in the process. So double down on your process, and you're going to get the results that you're looking for.
Amen to that, bro. So I know I talked about this before on like one of my other YouTube, I don't know, videos. I'm still getting used to this whole YouTube thing. And I talked about, how I met you when I first met you and just, my training and how it worked with boxing. I mean, now I'm training like elite wrestlers too, as well. I've trained my UFC fighters just like you as well. And I guess I just want to talk about that, first time meeting you type thing and what it was that you thought about like this training, my biomechanics.
I mean, the thing that makes the most sense is that we were all evolved to move in a certain movements that are going to be very beneficial to the way that we move as athletes. I mean, the reason why I've always believed in you is that from the first time that when I brought Ashton H.O. Silva over to you, is that you were doing things, and I can immediately see that you were identifying the efficiencies that Ashton had, and it was almost like you were applying lubricant or oil to
Right.
his mechanics in
Yeah.
order to make him, peaking out and performing and making him more fluid. A lot of times, gosh, you get around a lot of strength and conditioning guys, as I have been because I've been in the industry for a long time, and I sometimes see them exercising their ego with the athlete, pushing them too hard, making them do ridiculous stuff, whatever it is, how much can you just go out, push your brother, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, when we see the most graceful athletes in the world, whether that be a sprinter, maybe even a ballet dancer, a wrestler, a boxer, people that are just, a wide receiver and so forth, we see universal themes that are being expressed in athletic movement. And when I got with you, obviously there was a lot of comfort knowing that you were a former professional fighter yourself. It's also comfort in knowing that just I could see that you weren't operating within your ego and that you were literally there just to make the athlete the best version of themselves. Why I jive with my biomechanics is just because not everybody can take somebody and make them better at a golf swing, make them better with a tennis racket, make them better with a baseball swing, make them a better runner, make them a faster sprinter, and so forth. A lot of these guys are out there and they're building bodies that aren't necessarily conducive to performing. And it's really easy for me to look at you and look where you're coming from, and knew that you were taking more of a dynamic, thorough approach, and that approach was specific just for an athlete performing.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I've been in those guys' shoes before. Where like you go to these strength conditioning coaches, and it wasn't really heavy on the gram back then when I was fighting, but like, it was the ego driven thing. And it's like, oh, we're going to do this because, I came up with this and I don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to do something. And it's funny you saying that. I was just watching this video of Cub Swanson. I think he's on like the Jackson podcast.
I lost every fight that I trained with Coach Cal, and I'm not really blaming him. I learned so much from him. I think he's like a savant when it comes to some things. But when I said, why am I doing this? And this has been my theory, my thing in my career, is I should always be able to challenge you. Like you say, go do 1,000 of this. Okay. Why? Tell me why. Explain to me why that's going to benefit me, and I'll do it. But if you can't tell me why it's a benefit to me, then no, absolutely not. So I was getting ran to the ground. And when I said twice a week and then training hard, right? So by the time I made it to the fight, I was on E. There was no tapering. It was like grind. And so you get into the fight and you're like, I've been fighting for 2 months, 3 months. Like I'm tired, And what I learned is we need to be trained sometimes more mental than physical, and be built up, and learned that if you do things properly and you give your body time to repair itself, you'll perform better. And that's really what I learned. And so when I went back and I was like, hey, is there any way that we could alter this? I was told, well, he's not tough enough. There's plenty of people that want to be in your position. And if you're not tough enough. And I was like, do you know how many bones I've broken in fights?
Yeah, I know Cub. He's a great guy.
Yeah, great guy, right? Dude, tough as nails. And he was talking about the training lab, Coach Cal. And he's like, when I train with them, he's like, I lost all my fights. And there was a point where he would ask him, like, what are we doing this for? And he didn't really have an answer for him. And then he's like, hey, man, I don't think I should do it like this. Can I do modified version of this? And I think they told him, like, maybe you're not as tough as you think. And he says in the podcast, my jaw was broken, my rib was broken, and I finished fights like that. And I was like, wow, like, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been to Cal's. I've watched Cal's work with his athletes. Sometimes it's a mixed bag. Some athletes, I think, like that kind of stuff because I like the bravado, right? But for someone like me that's a trainer, first of all, going through a fight camp, you're going to spar, anywhere between 60 to 100 very hard rounds. Now, when we're taking someone that's doing MMA, you're compounding that even more. You got time on the mat. You might have somebody that's working with your jiu-jitsu, somebody that's working with your wrestling, and you have to. With strength and conditioning, I'm always looking. You drive well because first of all, you're an athlete, so and not just an athlete. You're a former combat athlete.
Right.
So you've probably been there sometimes where you're like, hey man, I left everything in strength and conditioning, and now I'm entering the octagon, I'm entering the mat, I'm entering the ring, and when you're getting hit too much. And it's a paralyzing effect. It's a domino effect when you get hit too much, because now you go to bed and you're like, oh, where did I put my keys? Or, I feel a little slow, feel a little groggy. And that's gonna have a cumulative sort of impact on you feeling great for your camp. And we all want you, like right now, I'm dealing with a fighter's going to be the main event of the Cosmo. We have begun to taper, and I'm going to taper 9 days to 10 days before the event. Okay, because I want him to be, and we've broke him down and we're building him back up. And I want him to feel so damn ready to go on fight night. I don't want to, I understand where Cub is coming from with Cal. Me specifically, I'm not going to send anybody to Cal. I'm going to be honest about it. That's not my cup of tea. And it's nothing to say anything about the training lab. I know that, and I don't want to feel, unfair. But if there is a fighter that believes that they need to do some crazy shit, like some Dave Goggins shit, Cal is absolutely perfect for that. Right. But it all comes, for most athletes out there, you're already doing enough. You need teams around you that have been there before, and you need someone to push you when it's time to push you, often on days when you don't feel like training at all. And you're gonna have your best days. And when we see that you're on a high, a lot of times you're gonna wonder, why are we reeling you in? Yeah. So without I do not believe, and I have a saying, around the gym. I said, what is the secret to being in great shape? And the fighter said, what is it, Trev? What is it? I said, well, being out of shape. And I think what happens with a lot of people, they try to keep this high border, this high base of when they're always in shape, and they only get moderate change from that base to their peak. And when it's only moderate change, you're not going to get the benefits of the mental benefits of belief, of really feeling great when you have just a great baseline, which isn't super close to your peak, and then you go from just that really good baseline to your peak. You're going to have all those mental advantages that come with it, where you can't wait to get in there and outsprint somebody. You can't wait to get in there and frankly fuck somebody up.
Yeah.
You got to have that. I don't believe in the other way, and that's just me personally. I got nothing but love for Cal. I've been around Cal, but I can see where Cup is coming from.
Yeah. So. I like Cal too. He's a really smart guy. He knows his stuff, his formulas, and everything like that. But like you said, like when it comes time to fight or to be underneath the lights in that arena, you want to feel like you've been caged up for a few days, and you're like, I'm ready to let loose, right? This is everything I've been training for. It's like you're about to go get married, right? Like you're like, yeah, let's go. Like this is the time right now, and then you actually get to perform at your peak best and to just let it all go on whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I think so much less is more and more is less, right? But once again, you're defaulting to teams. Obviously, Cal's had an incredible amount of experience with, success with Dillashaw and Pico and some of those other guys. But there's also other questions that surround some of that shit too. That's just me being honest about it. I'm not here to lie to anybody. I don't care to lie. And I'm not gonna interfere what we're talking about. But yeah, just be careful out there. My best advice to young athletes is do not get around somebody that's too macho. Yeah. This is good. I'm gonna say some cold shit that you'll only get from Trevor Sambrano. Iceberg Slim is like a famous pimp, right? And one of the things I remember, Dave Chappelle had a comedy skit where he was talking about where a woman had been manipulated to continue to have sex, right? You as a fighter only get a certain amount of hits. You as a fighter only get a certain amount of camps. You as a fighter only get a certain amount of submissions. You as a fighter only get a certain amount of intensity, and then it's gone. I see this all the time. It's the same thing. What the Iceberg Slim thing is the same thing with the prostitute, right? It sounds horrible, but I'm just being blatantly honest here, and I'm going to give you a straight answer. A lot of these guys, they get into it. They're 18. And my biggest problem with young fighters is they're seeing what I'm doing with my 10-round fighters, my 12-round fighters, which is a completely different way that I'm going about it. And they're wanting to duplicate that. No, you're on 4 rounds right now, buddy. You're going to see me for 90 minutes and you're going to press your ass home and you're going to do strength and conditioning. But we're not going to be doing 3 a days because you're preparing for 36 minutes for a world championship fight.
Right.
And you got to know that as a fighter. Gradually, you're going to increase your baselines, but you need to be very careful of who you surround yourself with. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself off the track.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Which leads me actually to my next question. It's funny how this has been working. By the way, anybody watching this, we did not talk about this at all. We're just kind of just flowing. Just like how you're saying, like, especially me, like I used to like be an iron worker and, climb columns, do all that nasty work right there. And then after I was done, I'd be able to go to practice and go train for myself. And that was like in my mid 20s. But now, right, I'm 40. It's like I can't train the way I used to. There's like a certain protocol of what I do with people, even myself, where it's like I can still get after it, but I have to be smarter with it now, especially as age, because I pretty much ran myself through the streets, I guess, like you were just saying, like a prostitute, and I got to make everything count now so that I'm able to still do my stuff as a dad, still be able to do my stuff as a coach, and just as a businessman.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of athletes are always going to have a thin balance, and they know when they were at their peak and when you were not at your peak. It's also you as a trainer, you as a coach. These are new variables that have come into play. I know you've been now in your lane for probably close to a decade plus, because that's what Yeah. So, but this goes to everything that whether you're a weekend warrior that's looking to peak because you have a half Ironman that's coming up, if you're a guy that just wants to do sub 18 minutes on a 5K or whatever it is, you're going to have to find that balance. And there's always ego. Ego's a great thing when used properly, but ego, like I said, should be tethered to process, tethered to your ability to take care of yourself, to do the right things that are actually going to show up the day of an event, to make sure that you are eating the right things, that you're feeding your body the right things. You might even find some film on YouTube. You might find this podcast right here as inspiring for you to go out there and do what you're supposed to do. Ego is not kettlebells and chains around bench presses and some of this, push it, brother. Most of those guys, in fact, have no achievements or accolades in life besides telling someone to push it, brother.
Yeah.
I've yet to see some of these guys in corners or ever doing the things that we're asking, athletes to do: sprinting, catching a ball, hitting somebody in the face, submitting somebody. And so you just really got to be careful, to reiterate, who you got in your corner. I mean, I think that, it's not by accident that you move away from California and all of a sudden you're working with the top prospects in your regional area. That's not by accident, because as athletes, they're going to know whether or not they feel comfortable with you, specifically just in that context. Is this guy going to injure me? And then they go and do their event. They're like, holy shit, I feel great. I was able to suplex somebody, I have a quicker first step. I've never felt better before, man. That thing that I used to always have going on with my back, all of a sudden, maybe a tight psoas or some shit, is gone.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to get around the right people, especially people that jive with the direction you're going, because they've been there.
Yeah.
And it seems to be like the theme of it, but shit, that's my best advice. Stay away from the meatheads. So.
Yep. There you go, man. All right, Trevor. Well, I appreciate you getting on here. I know you got things to do. You're a busy man. And what's the next fight happening? I think you maybe said it.
I got 2 fights coming up on April 11th. I got Jalen Walker fighting undefeated guy that's 10-0. Jalen's 15-1. I got Brandon Adams fighting for the IBF Eliminator title against a black Irish kid. I can't say his name off. I'll show you the poster because I'll butcher it. Against my boy right here.
That guy.
Taiming Agarko. It is a real fight. He's 16-0. He's going to be like I said, he's going to be at the Cosmo in Las Vegas. Definitely pull up. And then I got my son fighting on April 24th, Lawrence King.
There we go.
And I got her fighting right here.
Chelsea
May Anderson.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying? She'll be up April 24th. And we're doing our thing. But I appreciate you. And you're in good hands with Mark.
All right, bro. Thanks, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. All right.
Later.